Hey friends, Richard here at the Jam Space. Welcome to episode number 3 of the Rescue My Rig series. We're going to be taking a look at the EarthQuaker Devices Swiss Things pedal board reconciler and the drive section of my new pedal board configuration. Before we can really dive into that, we have to say goodbye to some old friends. You know, we've drifted apart. We don't really have that much in common anymore. And, you know, maybe we'll see each other, but it might be kind of a thing where it's like, oh, I hope they didn't see me. I don't really know what to say. Yeah, awkward kind of thing. So here we go. We're going to start on this end, and it is the Mooer Free Step volume/wah pedal. You know, I've really just never been much of a wah player. I know there's some applications where like it might come in handy, but Richie, there's a Jimi Hendrix tribute show coming up. What are you gonna do? Like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll keep the pedal, but it's not gonna live on my board because it's just not really something that I need often. So the great thing about it is it's kind of first in the signal chain. Basically, I can plug directly into the wah pedal. I can put it off of the board on the side of the pedal board. From the output of that, I can go into the input of the EarthQuaker devices. So it doesn't need to take up any real estate on the board. And goodbye, Mooer Free Step. Okay, so next in line is the Boss TU2 chromatic tuner, and I know you're thinking like,
you need a tuner.
Oh yeah, by the way, this is a really handy thing when you're changing your pedal board. Have a putty knife around because you're going to make a few changes as you go. Anyways, it's just too big. I mean, they make these little tuners that you put on the headstock of your guitar. Why do we need all of this space being taken up on our pedal board just so that we can tune our guitars? I first looked up this Rowan mini tuner. And you know what? It's not bad. It tunes fine, and I wasn't really worried about it ruining the signal quality because, again, this EarthQuaker Devices has a tuner output, so you're not even, the signal of your guitar doesn't flow through this. And it is smaller, and that's great, but I found something even smaller yet, and that is this little dandy little Swiff Audio C10 mini tuner. And you know, I think it's just genius. I'm just going to have it right up here on the corner there. It doesn't need to take up a lot of space, and I really like the screen is super bright, so it's great, and it tunes fine. The MXR Super Comp, kind of an updated Dyna Comp with an attack knob on it. And, you know, it's pretty good, and it is smaller than a standard, like, Boss pedal, like the one right beside it, for example. But I loathe that the power input is below this guitar input here. That right there drives me nuts, trying to, like, route the power into there. I just don't like it. But again, I've replaced this with a smaller pedal. So we're saving space, getting just as good of a result, and the power inputs on the top where it should be. So next one that we're kicking off the board is the Super Octave OC3 from Boss. And I used to be always like searching for like
a beefy tone. Bass, low end.
You know,
rock and roll.
And it kind of does the job with it has the 1 octave lower, and then it also has a 2nd octave below that you can dial in. I found the sound quality of that 2nd octave was pretty not that. It would always break up. Didn't sound so great. The thing that I liked about this pedal was the poly function, so you could set it and you could choose like, oh, when I play a C chord, I want the low C note. I want an octave below that note, but I don't want a note, any of the other notes to have have an octave below, so that your open chords will sound cleaner. And yeah, I like that function. It worked pretty good, but I really don't need it because I've discovered that what sounds even better is just putting on bigger strings on my guitar and tuning my guitar to a lower key. So I've tuned it from E standard. Now I have it down to C standard, and I've got some new strings on order. I might be able to get my guitar down to a B standard, so 5 keys lower than standard guitar tuning. I don't really need an octave pedal, do I? And I've also got a fuzz pedal on the board now, so not the same thing, but it kind of thickens your sound of your single notes.
Beefy tone.
In a sort of a way it kind of works as a replacement for the octave.
Low end.
For me, anyways. It's not the same effect, but anyhow, so then the next one is another MXR. So yeah, it's got that power thing that I'm not so fond of. And it's the Prime Distortion. Not my favorite distortion pedal, I guess. I guess it's just not my favorite sound that I got out of it. I've replaced it with something better that's more versatile, and that's just a good enough reason to get rid of it. And then last, I really do actually like this Danelectro, what is it called? The T-Bone Distortion. But you can see, like, it's old, it's dirty, and the distortion and the level knobs have snapped off of it, and it doesn't have a tone control. And you know, I've had my fun with it. It's time to say goodbye. So here we go. We're finally getting to the portion where the new stuff is here. So I don't want to miss anything describing the EarthQuaker devices, Swiss things. So I've just got the manual here. I'll just read their little write-up word for word here. So, welcome to Swiss Things. Swiss Things is an all-in-one pedal board reconciliation solution designed to really tie your rig together without resorting to some confusing loop switching contraption bigger than a meatball party sub that eats up your entire bottom row of your pedal board. And kind of, but not quite, does what you need it to do. Swiss Things combines 2 true bypass flexi-switch enabled effects loops. There's loop 1, and there's loop 2. Flexi-switch is just when you hold it down, and it'll turn the loop on as you have it pressed down, and then as you release, it turns off. Or you can just do the normal turn it on, turn it off. But it's kind of cool. So it's got that. It has a flexi-switch ABY box. Okay, so up here you can switch to the B output with a flexi switch and then release and it goes back to A, or you can just do normal. Now I'm on output B, now I'm on output A, or you can engage both of them with flexi switch or just regular switching. The ABY box has a transformer isolation between the outputs. You can engage the output phase on the B output there with that switch there. It has a buffered tuner output, 20 dBs of clean boost, an expression pedal output, and it has the expression pedal output for volume control and a quiet high headroom output buffer into a compact pedalboard friendly signal routing junction box that lives at the top right corner of your pedal board and really ties your rig together without any signal loss. So yeah, I can vouch for all those things. I've had it for about a month. For me, I don't need more than one loop 1 and a loop 2. I've never had a loop switcher, so now I have a pedal that has 2 loops in it. Great. Really, I wanted it for the ABY switching, or more so the output phase and the isolated B output from the A, so that you could get rid of, 60 cycle hum and stuff like that might occur otherwise. That's really what I was looking for. But then it had also a clean boost, like they said, and it's got the tuner output and the expression volume pedal output. So it does a lot of cool stuff. And it was, almost the same price as or even less than some of the other ABY switchers out there. So it was just like, wow, incredible value, and I really do like it. They kind of bashed those looper, you know, kind of like rectangular long things, have multiple loops on them. In a sort of a way, though, I kind of wish that this maybe was that shape, just because I'd like to have the loop switches and the ABY switches and the boost actually just closer to the front of the board because they're easier to access. So maybe a version 2, they might kind of consider that. I tried putting this up at the front here, and yeah, it worked okay, but again, you've got the outputs to the amp are on the top here, so it really is probably best to put it at the top. That's what they recommend, so I just said, well, I'll just do that. So another thing about it, just as a small, like, hey, maybe this would be better if they did it differently and for a version 2, but you've got the loop 1 switches over here, and then you've got the light that shows that it's engaged is over here where the return and send are. And then right below that light, though, is the loop 2 switch. And then its light is further up here. So it's a little bit confusing if you're actually using the lights. You can click on loop 2 and then, you know, the loop 1 light doesn't go on, and you might get confused, I suppose. I've just, you know, for me, I don't even think about the lights. I just listen to the sound. And I've got it set up so that all of my drive pedals in loop 1 are on the right side of the board. So the loop 1 pedal's on the right, and I've got my drive pedals in loop 1 on the right, and then the loop 2 function, you know, everything will be over here. So I'm not really going to rely on the lights much. Does it sound like those are engaged? Then they're engaged, yeah. These loop 1 boost and loop 2, you know, they're a little bit close together, so you got to be careful. That's about it, though, as far as like if there's any drawbacks to the pedal. That's really all I have to say. So really still very, very happy with it. And yeah, it's going to affect the entire layout of the board. So it's a very important pedal to this build. I've used all these different colored cables just so it's easier to see where each cable is running, but also because I was just still in the experimenting phase, so I was just using any of the like handy little pedal patch cables that I have on hand. It's not going to look like this, so in next week's video I'm going to clean up the pedals with some solderless cables that'll be made to the proper size, and it's going to look a lot cleaner. I'm going to tidy it up, so please don't judge me on that. This is still just like this is a work in progress, but I've decided upon the pedals, at least for now, and the order that they're going to go in. So out of the send, here's the gold monoprice cable, and it comes in, where does it go? Right here to the input of the Boss NS2, the noise suppressor. So out of the Boss NS2 send, the yellow cable here, it goes into the MXR Dyna Comp Mini. So yeah, I really like this little guy. It's got your attack button, so you can decide how quickly you want to compress, I guess. And you've got your ability to set your compression and your level. And I just do a little bit of a light compression and a little bit of a volume boost, I think, basically, is what I do with that. So out of that, it goes into the Cuvave Fuzz, which is kind of like YouTube famous right now. Cheap pedal that does a good job, I guess, for its price range. I've never owned a fuzz pedal. Part of this board build is, you know, to improve everything, but also I'm not going to just get crazy and just spend, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars everywhere. So I've never had a fuzz pedal before, so now I have one. That's an upgrade. Oh, and I should say, I have it here in the chain because it really responds well to having a compressor in front of it. So it's super spitty. You can get like really like classic video game kind of like low quality sort of fuzz sounds out of it. But then when you put the compressor on in front of it, it smooths it out a lot, and it gives you a really nice like distorted kind of fuzz that's a lot more like contained. And so it's basically, it's like two pedals when you put the compressor in front of it. So it's pretty cool. Out of that, it goes into the Tube Screamer Mini. It's good. I've actually never owned a Tube Screamer, so in this case, I was like, well, I'll get the actual Tube Screamer. I'm sure there was plenty of, you know, knockoffs that I could have gotten a mini pedal, but I got this one, and yeah, it does fine. It does all the things that you've heard about Tube Screamers.
How does Stevie Ray Vaughan set his?
No real compromises in my mind. Again, I've never owned like an original TS-808 or a TS-9, but I'm happy with it. It's fine. Out of that, it goes into this JHS AT Plus, the Andy Timmons signature pedal. So this pedal I've spent the most time with because you can see it's got two switches. So this one is your main, you're turning on the main like distortion or drive, and then it has a pre-boost. I wish I knew it before I bought the Tube Screamer Mini, is because it's basically Andy Timmons, his TS-808 settings, and it just has a volume control. It's a pretty cool pedal. It's based on the Marshall Governor, which came out in '88, I believe. It's just trying to give you that classic high gain Marshall dirt. Andy Timmons uses it for a lead pedal. So I did watch a Premier Guitar rig rundown that Andy Timmons did. I know from watching it that he would use a compressor to boost his clean sound on his Mesa Lone Star, and then he would use a blues driver, a Keeley modified blues driver for his mid-gain tone. And then at that time, the AT Plus didn't exist. The pedal that came out, the first version, just the AT, that he used for his lead tones. So when he uses it, I screenshotted images of how he set his AT pedal, and he's got the drive up, like, sorry, this is the drive here, the drive up really high, and actually he had his volume up super high too. Like, I tried to set it like him, and I put it into my Mesa Express, which is a very similar amp, but I just couldn't. I even screenshotted his amp settings, and like, I mean, it was a live venue that they're in, so. But he also has a G2, a Gig Rig G2, which you can control the post volume of all of your pedals that are in every single loop. So I think what Andy does is he drives the pedal super hard. He puts it in the 100 watt setting, but then he'll drive the volume and the drive. He'll dime them almost, and then he can just dial the post volume down on the G2. Because I watched another video that he did for JHS where he had it, you could see the pedal sitting right beside him on a stool, and he didn't have it set the same. It was just the guitar into the pedal and then the pedal into the amp. So because he didn't have anything else kind of affecting it, he had to set it a little bit different. So it's interesting to set it how he used it, and it's a good place to start because it's his signature pedal. So I did have fun with kind of like, oh, and I'm not even really that kind of a player. That's not necessarily the tone that I'm chasing. I didn't necessarily get this pedal because it's what Andy uses, but he's a fantastic player. This boost button here, it's a pre-boost. So here's your main AT Plus sort of distortion drive, and then this boost here, it's interesting. This is your volume control for the boost. So it's better than those guitar amps where they've got like an A/B switch between the channels and then a boost button, but there's no level control. Well, this has it. And interestingly, you know, Andy talks about him, you know, using it as a boost, but what he'll do is he'll set it lower, and so really what happens is the tone changes. And he said himself, he'll use this, he'll engage the boost portion when he's using his neck pickup. It kind of sort of removes some of the low frequencies, but really it kind of like boosts the mids, and that's because it's modeled after how he sets his Tube Screamer 808. So I also screenshotted some images of his Tube Screamer settings from that same Premier guitar video that I was talking about. And I set up my Tube Screamer Mini, and I set my amp kind of like how Andy had his Lone Star set in that Premier guitar. And I also set up the AT, and I tried to see how similar this and this were, because the boost is basically a Tube Screamer sound with Andy's specific settings on tone and distortion or overdrive, whatever you want to call it. And this is the level control. And so when Andy dials it back, he might get maybe a little bit louder, but not really. He's just changing the tone so that he cuts through the sound, he cuts through the band better. I probably won't use it that way. I'm probably more likely to set my distortion and level and, you know, EQ differently, and then I'm going to actually use it as a boost. I'm going to want a little more volume. And the reason is you can also use it just by itself. So your clean tone, you can just kick on this sort of like pre-dialed in Andy Timmons Tube Screamer settings, and you just have control over the volume. So that kind of is a reason why maybe I don't want this Tube Screamer Mini, but I could set it, I could set the, you know, the tone and the distortion or the overdrive level, I could set it quite differently. So I could have sort of like two Tube Screamer pedals. I could run a Tube Screamer into another Tube Screamer. I mean, I don't know. I suppose there's something else that could eventually occupy this space. But yeah, I'm really happy. I've never really thought of myself as a Marshall amp guy, but the EQ and the air control really give this Marshall-based sort of pedal in a box a lot of, you know, control over the tone that comes out of it. So it's super flexible pedal, and I get two things done in the space of one, and yeah, I'm really happy with it. That's the drive section of the pedal board here. I think I talked on maybe for a long time here, and we're not even going to get to hear them now because I've talked for too long. So my apologies for that. If you're still with me, really appreciate it. I would love it if you could give us a comment, like, and subscribe. Let me know what pedals you think that I should have in the modulation area of the pedal board. Any of your favorites, reverbs and delays, would be good to hear about them, and I will consider them. No promises. Subscribe to this channel. We're a new channel. The Jam Space has been around for a decade, but we're finally making our way over to YouTube. So lots of stuff to talk about and do. Once we get this rig all sorted out, there'll be a lot more like actual music on the channel. Next weekly Wednesday video, it's going to be me cleaning up this rat's nest of cables here. I've got actually a sponsor for that, so I'm excited to be working with Crosby Audio. So I guess that kind of wraps it up for this week's video. So yeah, tune in next Wednesday. Richard here at the Jam Space signing off. We'll see you next time.